Maddie from Madalynne Intimates here. If you are unfamiliar with Madalynne, let me just give you my little 20-second spiel and tell you about all the things that we do. So we are a Philadelphia-based sewing studio specializing in lingerie. That is our bread and butter. But we also do swimwear, activewear, and corsets, DIY kits, classes, retreats, online tutorials, reels. We do all the things for those things. Now, for fall, there are 2 DIY kits that just landed in the web shop. They are both for the S9974, Madalynne's latest pattern with Simplicity, a corset top as well as dress. Now, the kits are only for the corset tops, but I digress. Both of them feature a brocade fabrics. Now, sewers. I know what you're thinking. Brocade? Absolutely not. It frays like crazy. Brocade in a corset? No, absolutely not. But hear me out. Watch this short tutorial because I'm going to give you some tips for working with brocade fabrics, especially with brocades in corsets. And one of them was a game changer. Like, don't even bring that brocade near me too. Yes, I am filling up my whole me-made wardrobe with brocades. Okay? Okay. First thing is choosing the right needle and thread. Some of these tips are super basic, but you would be surprised how many times I have skipped stitches or something doesn't look right and I'm like, am I using the right thread? Am I using the right needle? No, that might be why. So for brocades, it's essential, it's crucial to have a needle and thread that can withstand the thickness of the brocade. I suggest a size 12 or a size 14, universal or sharp thread, and also 100% polyester or 100% cotton thread that can withstand your brocade fabrics. Next is handling the fabric with care. I always use a rotary cutter for the sharpest, cleanest cut. I use it in lingerie, so by default, we have a lot here in the studio. So I use this for cutting brocades, but I like that it cuts the fabric really sharp. Also, when you cut with scissors, you kind of lift up the fabric a little bit, and the less that this fabric moves, the less chance it has to fray. And I think that is the key with brocades, is doing everything you can to prevent it from fraying. Next is preventing the fabric from fraying as well as stabilizing the fabric. This is my game-changing tip. This made me go from I don't want to see a brocade to I want to sew all the brocades. Now here is the S9974, the inside, innards. This is what sewers love. And as you can see that it is, every single piece is interlined or lined with an interlining. This is coutil. You could also use a drill or a duck canvas. Now, before I cut out any of the pattern pieces, I laid the main fabric, which was a brocade, as well as my interlining, which in this case was a coutil, and I spray basted them together with Otis 505 spray adhesive. Otis is my go-to brand, but there are some other brands for people who live in other countries and don't have access to Otis. You basically want a temporary spray adhesive. Now, why use a temporary spray adhesive versus something like a bonded web? That is because for a lot of brocades, here is a great example of a fabric that I bought in London when I was traveling. Oh, isn't that pretty? Yes. Okay, I digress. We all are fabric addicts. So when you use a bonded web, you have to use you have to use an iron at high heat. And you run the risk of, with using a brocade that has like a Lurex threading, that heat and that pressure could damage your Lurex or metallic threading. This is another brocade, which is actually the brocade that is in the corset that I'm wearing at the beginning of this video. Bought it from Mood, spent way too much money per yard, but I have absolutely 0 buyer's remorse because it was totally worth it. But this also has a Lurex thread detailing. So if I use the bonded web, which is very commonly used for quilters, for sewers, and I use the high heat, I would damage this. So that is why I like using Otis versus the bonded web. And I've never had issues with, even though Otif's is a temporary spray adhesive, I've never had issues with it coming pulled apart, the interlining and the main fabric. So I like it. I know the pinners out there are not gonna like this, but pin carefully and pin sparingly. I know there are some students and some sewers that I deal with that just like to pin the heck out of every single seam. God bless you. But with brocades, especially satin brocades, your pin marks could show. So if you're dealing with the satin brocade, use a sharp or silk pin or pins, but you could also use clips. These, my friends, are fantastic. These are so good. I know a lot of sewers use them in their sewing, but these are clips that you can use to basically act as pins before sewing a seam. Sewing mostly lingerie, I deal with fabrics that slip and move and walk a ton under the machine or while I'm sewing. I cannot recommend more a walking foot. So when you are sewing, both fabrics should ideally move through the machine at the same rate, but a lot of times they don't. One moves faster than the other, and then when you get to the end of the seam, one of your fabrics or layers are shorter than the other. And then you're like, oh crap, what do I do now? So what the walking foot does is ensure that both of those fabrics, especially in brocades, move through the machine at the same rate. Going back to this gorgeous brocade, you want to be mindful and be very careful when pressing your brocades, because the last thing that you want to do is press it on too high of a heat and ruin your fabric. So always test a little bit of fabric. You can also use a pressing cloth or an organza or something over as you're pressing it so that you don't damage the fabric. My last parting tip is take your time. Whether you are a sewer or not a sewer, or you're friends of a sewer, or you're listening to this as your sewer friend is watching this video, everybody loves a brocade. They just want to pet it. They love like the gold shimmery detail. But a brocade project can definitely have its challenge. Taking these extra steps, I promise you that you will not only love the sewing journey and experience, but you will also love wearing your brocade Meet Made. Hopefully the 9974, but it could be another project. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial. And if you have any tips or game-changing techniques when working with brocades, or maybe you have your favorite place to purchase brocades, pop them in the comments. We want to hear from you.